Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video I want to talk about how you can potentially repair Madam Ashbury's House of Wax. This piece I just got in the mail and you can see the inner seams are disconnected. I think this one is maybe intact, but Madam Ashbury has fallen back. I'm not sure if this piece originally would have had a Lemax felt mat, because oftentimes the pieces will have a backing here that's like a foam piece that says Lemax on it. If it did, someone else has already removed it. So basically, they usually use a heat sensitive resin. So if you have a small heat gun, this is the one I'm going to be using. It's like a precision heat gun. You can carefully go around the edges and try and heat it up. Don't spend too long in any one area because then you'll melt the plastic. All you're wanting to do is get it hot enough that the resin will snap. You sort of want to go around like that. I'm also going to remove the ticket booth light just so that I can hopefully get it all out without breaking anything. There we go. And this looks like it was probably already opened by someone else, so I'm not sure what to really expect. Currently, the state of this piece is the bat's motor will rotate and the lights turn on, but there's no volume, and it's in pretty sorry shape. Alright, there's everything out. Basically, with these older Lemax pieces, they have this volume control plus power adapter plug, and they're a bit more susceptible to damage. So I'm not sure right now. One thing I could be looking at is the computer board itself might be fried. I'm hoping that's not the case. Otherwise though, something is disconnected and not giving the speaker and stuff power. So I'm gonna do a bit of troubleshooting off camera and I'll come back to the video after. Alright, so here I have two Lemax Madam Ashbury's House of Wax. Both of these have different issues, and I'm going to try and combine them to make one good working house. This one was the first one I purchased. I was hoping that I could just get this one to work. Cosmetically, it's fine, but the inside, the computer board is basically toast. When they go through years of potentially not working correctly and the motors are clogged or wires get crisscrossed, it basically killed the main computer chip, which is down here on the bottom. It's this black blob here. So that does all the controlling for the audio and doing the motors to come in and out. The flickering light effect here on the side for the cauldron was still working on this house, mostly because that is controlled by these transistors. So that's actually not controlled by the main computer chip. As far as all the lights, this one was working correctly. The sound was not working. And I did check the volume control and everything was fine, but the computer board is just dead. This one, the computer chip is still working correctly. However, this one was tampered with. And you can see someone just melted or cut this out because they were trying to put this LED through there. You could have just simply unscrewed this. There's little screws and you could have just unscrewed that and it would have been able to put the wire through correctly like that. And that's for the gatehouse light, the ticket. The speaker on this one's fine, but basically a lot of the wires inside got messed up because someone tried to put these back in place, and both of them are out currently. Both of them, the seams on the inside got knocked out. So I'll have to do re-gluing for that. But this one, basically, almost all the LEDs are no longer working because all the wires crisscrossed and messed up. So I'm gonna have to try and trace and track every single wire on the original board here to make sure it matches up here, and then resolder stuff. So now I'm gonna walk you through how to get the computer board off of the original plate, just in case you're wondering. What I did is I just tapped my soldering iron to the 2 points on the speaker to remove the solder that was there. On this green board, the wires were both green, and you can trace them on both of these because on the other side they'll actually have a little symbol right there. That's the sign for speaker. So on the other side where the 2 wires join up onto that point, those are your speaker wires. Those are the speaker wires on the other board. But anyway, it seems like the previous owner of this piece didn't figure out that there's little Phillips head screws on the bottom here that you could just easily take off. They're just little tiny ones, so make sure you don't lose them. And after those are removed, you can pretty easily just take off the plate. This one, I've already made a new rubber band hinge for the coffin. It's easier to remove it though if the coffin lid is off. So there, this base piece came off. Also, you'll want to make sure that the motor is removed. For that, there's these 2 little Phillips head screws on the top securing this bracket. This one of the plastic pieces came off, but the motor's straddled in between the 2 pegs. And then you can just use a little screwdriver to lift up and pull the motor out of the gearbox. So that's how you take that off. And the main computer board goes here, and it's just secured with some hot glue basically. I'm also going to remove this plate. There you have it. Alright, so now I'm going to be looking at the computer board. For anyone who doesn't know anything about electronics, it's fine. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about this part in the comments. So whenever you're looking at a hacked computer board, you can usually identify if it was a novice solder joint, and if wires are just quite obviously misplaced. So if you look at this, so here on the computer board, you can clearly see these holes are not fully filled, and that's evidence of tampering. Here's again. And then a lot of the wires got ripped off. And then right here, you can see this is a floating joint. They have this weird twisted thing with 2 diodes. Diodes basically will allow power one way but not back. And this is connected to the power lead for the bats on the top of the building. I did also look at the original board. That one also has a floating connection, so I think that this is probably factory done. It's very cheap and lousy in my opinion, but there's again floating diode with the power lead to the motor in the top. My thinking was they probably put the diode there to help protect the computer board against reverse voltage from the motor. This, though, was definitely hacked, so I'm going to probably desolder this and then just have one. I don't know why there's 2, because there's no real reason to have 2 in a row like that. Then the other thing is they desoldered this transistor here. So one of the pins was not fully connected now. It's just sort of floating there. I don't know if that was intentional or what, but I'm going to resolder that. And then I'll have to see. I don't know if any other points on this are obviously tampered with. Luckily, it seems like the original power was not tampered with or broken. So the original connections here are fine. With these older Lemax pieces, they feed power through the cord here. See, it plugs in and you have the volume control, versus newer pieces, it'll plug into the building and then it has a little adapter thingy that will have the volume. So this one has some more wires in it. So basically you have a positive and a negative, and then some volume wires. I think there should be 4 or 5. Yeah, so here there's 2 connected to this pole, and this is factory done. One of them is a grounding wire for the main computer board. This joint runs basically the whole length of the board, and it's the negative side of the circuit. And then the other wire goes to the potentiometer inside of here to ground the speaker so you don't have extra buzzing. And then the other 2, this one is for sure for the speaker. This one, I'm not 100% sure. I think it's also speaker though. And then this one's the power. So this is the positive wire that is for the whole circuit board. Again, you can see it runs all the way. Basically the switch here, when you hear the click, there's a switch that makes contact. So there it's off and there it's on. You can see how it actually makes contact with the little pin here. So here you can see this is the main positive input from the adapter, and it goes onto this pin. And then it crosses over through that switch and goes to the other wire going through this cord to the computer board. Also, for anyone who's wondering about running the LEDs on this piece, it's super simple actually. This pretty much used all the exact same color LED. They're just like an orangey yellow. And except for the flaming pot on the side that has red and orangey lights that flicker. Basically, as I explained earlier, there's a positive pole that comes from the switch, and the positive pole runs straight up the middle of this board. The negative is on the sides. And so the positive pole will go up, and then it junctions off here and makes a cross. So you can see that positive pole goes straight across there, it's connected. And then on the opposite side of the board, there's a bunch of resistors, and it shows the resistors go out. So here's the cross going to power the resistors, and then they go across, and then the diode, this is the symbol for diode for the LEDs, go in between here and the negative pole that's up there. So here you can see there's a negative pole that crosses from either side. And so your LEDs are all going to be connected in between the negative and positive output from the resistors. Reason why it might not work is if you don't have resistors in a few different spots. This Lemax board does not actually have all the resistors in place, so don't try and solder onto those. But you do still have spots for 7 LEDs, it looks like. So here I was just going to show, I got the computer board up and running, and all the motor units are now working. So you can see the mummy's actually coming up and down. I'm going to try and fix the crackling. That's most likely due to the potentiometer being dirty. You can see the bell is working though too. And the motor on the top is spinning also. With these gearboxes, what I usually will do is, if you have some Vaseline, or you can also use white lithium grease. So you can use white grease, silicone grease, or also if the gearbox is really dried out and it's been in like California or something, stored in a garage, a lot of times the grease will be so dry that it won't even let the gears move. If they're at that stage, I'll use some of this oil to loosen up the gears, and then they're usually able to get the old grease to start working again. Or I'll get some Vaseline on a Q-tip and take the motor out like that, and then I'll put a Q-tip with some Vaseline and just sort of smear it in the hole, and then I'll put the gear back in. Yeah, this one was not originally working, but now the Mummy does function. I also did improve a few different solder joints. I removed this very shady wire here. Reason why I say it was shady is this looks like a junction that someone else did, and I also checked with the other computer board I have, and this does not seem like an original connection, but this wire was attached up here to this point, and that's just one of the transistors right here, and then it goes down to the main PC. So I did not like that connection, and I removed it, and lo and behold, it does not affect the computer board whatsoever. So I think it was definitely a shoddy connection that someone else did, because I doubt the Lemax factory would have someone go and wire this thing in versus just making another point-to-point connection on the computer board. Alright, so here I have the Madam Ashbury's house all finished as far as wiring goes. I ended up adding in custom lighting. So I did a pink light here, and I also put in a wallpaper that I printed out from Haunted Mansion. That's just like a miniature size wallpaper for the back there, so that it looks more like a room versus just seeing the back of the porcelain. And then I put in an orangish light there instead of the yellow. I also added in some more yellow lights on the inside to help make it brighter. And then I put in a custom ultraviolet light for the Mummy, because I just sort of thought that was lacking some sort of detail here. So I'm going to paint this with an ultraviolet green, so that then when he pops up, you'll see him below. This motor, I explained earlier how I do the gearbox, and it's just re-secured back in now. I don't like this motor setup at all, because basically what it does is it uses this little resistor here in series with the motor, so that when the motor's trying to work, it'll burn out the resistor when it gets to the open spot, and then do the same thing when it gets closed. And if the gears aren't lined up correctly, it can cause it to burn out, and it's just not a very good design. Yeah, I'll do another video once I get this all back together. Well, that pretty much concludes my presentation on how to take apart and repair your Madam Ashbury House of Wax. If there's any questions about how to fix certain things, I'm happy to answer in the comments. As far as the lighting goes that I did, I was custom. Most of the lights I actually just plug and play replaced. So the yellow LED color is about 2.3 volts, and so as long as your replacement LEDs don't use less than that, you should be safe. And as far as gluing everything back in, I just sort of heat gunned it and put some new hot glue on, and it secures everything back in. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the other videos on my channel.